Hello and welcome into the Michigan Football Report. I'm your host, Lena. Beside me is the Michigan football insider, James Yoder. We're here to break down bowl week, essentially. James, we get to go bowling. It will be announced on Sunday where the Michigan Wolverines will be placed. We're going to break down all the potential landing spots and opponents for the Wolverines this 2017 season. We're going to be breaking down some rumor-o-meters, too. We got a lot of them going this week, James.
It is rumor season, rumor galore season, and Michigan got, I think we'll talk about this in the middle of our rumor segment coming up, kind of some bad news that they had nothing to do with as far as a potential transfer that we'll talk about a little bit here. But a lot of rumors, Lena. We're getting into bowl season. Michigan's going to find out 2 days from now where they're going bowling. There's really 3 options that I think all the prognosticators, scribes, and pundits have kind of predicted them to go to. And then we'll kind of look back, take a little trip down memory lane. Michigan last won a national title 20 years ago, 1997. And we'll take a look at their bowl history since then.
Got a packed full show for you guys today. So we're going to start off with our rumor-o-meter segment. And this is a little bit of history repeating itself with this first one, James. So I'm sure we've all heard the reports by now. Greg Schiano on Sunday was hired as Tennessee Vol's new head coach. And then the Vol fan base took over. They were up in arms about the Schiano hiring, and all of a sudden he's not their head coach. Sounds a little familiar, right?
Well, it's a little bit of karma coming back at Schiano. So before we kind of bring Schiano on screen, well, we'll talk about this in a second. So Schiano in 2007, so let's take people back there. Lloyd Carr announces just 2 days after the Ohio State game, which was a loss, which was his 4th loss in a row to Ohio State at that point. Which is kind of really that period of time that started this really bad stretch of Michigan, 13 out of 14 since they won the game in 2003, then 13 out of 14 since. Michigan was looking for a head coach after 2007. Lloyd Carr retired on his own accord, had been there for a long time, 13 seasons. That they at first had targeted people like Les Miles. There were some definite discrepancies in the level of interest Michigan showed to Les Miles. He tried to desperately call the team and the athletic director Bill Martin to see if he can get an offer before they played. Much like Jimbo Fisher, before they played in the SEC title game, they weren't available to give him that, so he ended up staying at LSU. And then Michigan was scrambling for a coach. Schiano was a hot coach at the time at Rutgers. This is in 2007. Went to the College Football Awards in New York City. The night before the awards, they agreed to it in principle in a hotel room that he was going to become the Michigan's next head coach. That morning, he goes back to Rutgers, puts that information in front of them. They give him a better deal. He calls Bill Martin back up, backs out of the deal. So a little bit of karma. We're giving this a 4 Harbaugh head. I want to bring up here in a second what that 4 Harbaugh head means. 4 Harbaugh head, which means this is undisputable. This has been confirmed by multiple parties at this point. So if not for Schiano kind of playing Michigan as a pawn, if he had real interest in that job, he would have been their head coach instead of Rich Rodriguez. A week later, I guess 8 days after that, Rich Rodriguez would be announced as Michigan's head coach the following week. So the rumor meter here, Lena, anybody who's watched the show knows about the rumor meter. These are not the rumors me and you have been coming up with out of our back pockets. These are out there in some form. Either these have been reported by other people, these are on message boards, these are on Twitter, these have been whispered in the streets of Ann Arbor. So 0 Harbaugh is totally false. It is fake news. If we give it a 1 Harbaugh, we're like, okay, somebody respectable might have said it, but small shred of truth, not willing to put a stamp of truth behind it. 2 Harbaughs. People are talking, Lena. We know what that means. People are talking. It's more than a couple. It's people. 3 Harbaughs means it's pretty likely, but our best sources inside of Schembechler Hall haven't confirmed it. And if we give something a Harbaugh, 4 Harbaughs, that is F-A-C-K. That's a fact, okay? That's how Jim Harbaugh spells it. That's how we spell it here in the Michigan Football Report. That is meaning is 100% confirmed. There is no backing out of this one. So Greg Schiano, if not for him trying to get a better deal from Rutgers and them giving him that deal, would have been Michigan's head coach in 2007. So I don't feel as bad about for him as some others do that he got this social media storm on him due to his involvement with Penn State when Jerry Sandusky was there. So that is that. 4 Harbaughs, F-A-C-K.
Little revenge being served cold for the Ohio State defensive coordinator. And speaking of Ohio State, that brings us to our next rumor here. Speight could have played versus Ohio State now, James. He plans to petition for a medical redshirt for 2017. We're giving this one Harbaugh.
Well, it's kind of a two-part rumor here, right? So will he petition for a medical redshirt? I guess now there's nothing starting him or stopping him because he was injured in high school. He enrolled in Michigan as an injured player. So there's really nothing stopping him from pulling that, those medical reports from the 2014 season and saying, hey, I came as an injured quarterback. I couldn't have played that year, and I missed 8 games this year. I didn't go into the play after the game 5, which is really the rule in the NCAA to get a red shirt. So if you have to get a medical red shirt, they say, okay, you red shirt, that's fine, whatever it is. But if you miss 2 years because of injury, you can petition for a 6th year from the NCAA. That means he could potentially transfer and get 2 more years of playing somewhere else. Now, this is the really interesting part. I have heard it out there. I don't believe it. That's why I'm giving this one Harbaugh on this one, that he could have played versus Ohio State, but he told the coaching staff weeks back, even before the Ohio State game, of his intention to leave. And they said, well, if you're healthy, you want to play. And we're like, well, hey, if I play, I lose this year of eligibility. It's not worth it to me. I want to go somewhere else and try and rebuild my legacy, rebuild the kind of the starting position that he lost and didn't expect to get back next year from what the coaching staff had kind of led him to believe. So I'm giving it one Harbaugh. I just can't imagine a player of Wilton Speight's, I guess, reported character of being a pretty good guy, and as close as he came beating Ohio State and going to the college football playoff last year, that he wouldn't do everything he can, even if it meant giving up a year of eligibility 2 years from now, playing for probably Central Michigan, that he wouldn't have given Ohio State another shot at. So one small shred of truth, but I just can't imagine that's anything more than just some people talking and speculating out there.
All right, kind of keeping on this quarterback carousel, third rumor we have here, McCaffrey and Peters' parents have expressed displeasure in the possibility of a quarterback transferring to Michigan. 3 Harbaugh heads.
Well, it's not just a potential grad transfer, which we'll kind of talk about, but the next rumor, number 4, is almost intertwined with this one. There's been rumors for the past 2 weeks that Shea Patterson from Ole Miss may be coming to Michigan if they were to get sanctions that prevented him from ever playing in a bowl game at Ole Miss, and then he would be able to transfer without having to sit out a year. And then it started being talked about, okay, well, look, we ended up on John O'Corn against Ohio State. They need to go look for a shop around for a 5th-year guy, maybe somebody who's been supplanted as a starter elsewhere by a younger player, or a player who may want to make a step up in the world, come to a championship-ready Michigan team. And from what I've heard, I'm saying this is pretty likely. I've heard it from enough sources who would know that both Brandon Peters' dad, who has been vocal for a while when it comes to the Michigan coaching staff, and then McCaffrey's parents, less vocal, but they thought they had kind of an agreement to Harbaugh that, hey, we're sending him to you for a reason. We don't want you, you're going to develop him. You're not going to cherry pick quarterbacks every year and have a new competition. And so that was put out there. And I'm saying this is pretty likely. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh wants to risk one of these guys transferring potentially, but I guess we're just going to have to see what happens. I think this one is pretty likely, though.
Yeah, he can transfer without sitting out as a result of today's sanctions.
No, that's not true now. That has been debunked. That has been completely, you're talking about Patterson? It has been debunked. He cannot transfer without sitting out. He has to sit out a year because they were only given 1 additional year, unless something's developed in the last 30 minutes that I don't know about. They were given 1 additional year of bowl ban. So this year, 2017, and next year. They call it a 2-year bowl ban, but only added 1 year onto it. He has 2 years of eligibility, so he could play in a bowl game in the 2019 season as a true senior there.
All right, got a little bit of fake news going on there, but we want to know at home, who do you think will be the Michigan starting quarterback in 2018? Like I mentioned before, James, kind of a quarterback carousel going on right now in the Wolverine program. Who do you see getting that gig?
Well, it's really tough to say. I mean, this should be one of the better starting quarterback battles we've seen in recent memory in Michigan, because I think you've got 2 guys around the same age who have not much difference in their playing time. I think the perception out there is that McCaffrey is the more talented long-term option, although Peters was seen as that 2 years ago, and he was a true freshman as well. But I think it'll be Peters to start the year. But if he doesn't get them off to a rolling start, I think you could see a little bit of Drew Henson, Tom Brady from the late 90s and get quarterbacks kind of coming in, give one guy a quarter, another guy a quarter, because Michigan hasn't had this situation where they've had two players this young with no upperclassmen in front of them maybe in my entire life, and maybe since Tate Forcier and Denard Robinson in 2009 and 10, when you had two true freshman quarterbacks come in. One got the job in 09, the other one replaced him in 2010, actually. So I think it's going to be Peters to start, but they go on the road, Lena, game 1 next year at Notre Dame. That's a tough game to start the year,
yeah,
and if Peters loses that game, if he's the starting quarterback, I think McCaffrey's going to give every opportunity in practice the week after to get the job.
All right, guys, keep on throwing up your comments. We want to know who you think will be Michigan's starting quarterback in 2018. Producer Brett Scott will be bringing up the comments as he sees fit. Rumor number 5 here, James. We're giving this one 4 Harbaugh heads, right? Harbaugh took over the play calling duties versus Ohio State.
Yeah, and if you watched every Michigan game, this was a surprise to no one when this was being rumored around, because they ran a completely different offense, and you had guys wide open. I mean, the 4th down call in the 4th quarter, about 6 minutes left when they're down by 4 points. The one, Lena, where I unceremoniously spiked the football and then drop kicked it into the windows here in our office. That was one of the best play calls of the year, because they spread everybody out wide, and then they brought a guy out of the backfield, and something they hadn't done all year, a running back not going wide for like a screen pass or a pass to the outside. He came right up the middle, wide open. If he would have caught that ball, he not only had the first down, Lena, he would have about 40, 50 yards in front of him with one man to beat, which is the free safety coming up on him. And that's Chris Evans, one of the most elusive playmakers on Michigan's team. He would have juked that guy, taken it to the house. Michigan's defense would have held on against a redshirt freshman backup quarterback to win that game. So I'm giving this 4 Harbaughs. This is fact, F-A-C-K. Jim Harbaugh called that game, and what I think it spells out there is he knew how big of a deal that win would have been for the program. He stopped worrying about his coach's feelings and who's calling, too many cooks in the kitchen and all these hyperboles and this stuff you hear about. And so I think that means is you're going to see some shake up on this offensive staff, whether it's Tim Drevno, his longtime 3-year offensive coordinator, Pep Hamilton coming in from the Browns as the passing game coordinator, potentially his son, or the offensive line coach who has done nothing to prove he's worth the job, in Greg Fry coming over from Indiana, Michigan's former offensive line coach under Rich Rodriguez back in 2008 through 2010.
All right, James, you kind of teased this next rumor we have for you guys. Pep Hamilton won't return in 2018. A lot of people have been calling for his head after a pretty dismal, I would say, passing performance the Wolverines had this year. We're giving this one 3 Harbaugh heads. James, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so it's pretty likely. The reason it's pretty likely is his name has been rumored around everywhere recently. Any job that's available as a head coaching job, and I don't know where he thinks he's ready, gets off thinking he's ready to get a major Power 5 head coaching job, because he has had no success in his entire coaching career outside of Andrew Luck being attached to him at the hip, right? So he had Andrew Luck when he was QB coach at Stanford. He went on and got that promotion to be OC for the Colts. That didn't work out. He goes to the Browns as their passing game coordinator, and has been kind of a disappointment this year for Michigan. They had one of the most uninnovative passing games, and he also coached the wide receivers as well. The wide receivers showed no development from game 1 to game 4. It was some games you didn't even know they had a wide receiving core, and so I think Jim Harbaugh offered him a lot. He offered him a multi-year contract, Lena, which is not normal for assistants, especially assistants like him, who wasn't even the main offensive coordinator. So his agent is putting his name out everywhere. I don't think you're going to see him back. I think what you'll see most likely is he's not going to get a head coaching job, like I think he's trying to put the perception out. He'll take a job as the main offensive coordinator at a Maryland or at a, not UCLA, but a school, maybe not even UCLA, but maybe like an Oregon State, a second, level Power 5 school, and they'll spin it, because Jim Harbaugh and him have been together so long, they're friends. They'll spin it as a promotion, much like Jed Fish did when he left Michigan to go to UCLA. But it'll really be it's not working out. You got to hit the road.
All right, so we're bringing up a reaction poll here for you guys. Should Drevno and Hamilton return as offensive coordinators / play callers in 2018? Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people have been going for their heads this season. James, what do you think?
No, the answer is no. I mean, Tim Drevno, I like the guy a lot. I've spoken to him a few times. I know his agent very, very well. And Pep Hamilton, who is, I think it was a bad combination to bring in this guy. What's happening here with Harbaugh, I think, is he for so long has had his group of guys, and he keeps recycling them in and putting some of them like Willie Taggart out to bigger jobs. And I think he brought in Drevno because all the time Drevno got put in with him over 3 stops: San Diego, University of San Diego, Stanford, then the 49ers. Gave Drevno his first offensive coordinator job, and the plan for them really was year 1 we're gonna see what's going out there. Year 2 I'm going hard for a job, a head coaching job, and that's kind of how he wanted to reward Drevno. It didn't happen for Drevno last year. He got 0 offers, and then without a bunch of All-American players like Jake Butt or guys who were drafted very high in the NFL draft, first rounds like J.U. Chesson or Amara Darboh, you're seeing what Drevno's really capable of, which is not a very innovative offense. So I don't think they should return. If I had to predict, I would say Hamilton is gone. Drevno is there, but if he's back next year, I think it is absolutely his last year. Harbaugh gives him the, hey, you need to talk to Akron, Central Michigan, heck, even an FCS school if you want a head coaching job, but you're not going to be Michigan's coordinator past 18.
All right, I'm seeing a lot of ha-ha faces flying across the screen. Keep on throwing up those reactions. We want to know who you guys got for this. We're going to bring you back on screen now and remind you that we are presented by GameTime. GameTime is the #1 app on the App Store for last-minute game tickets, concert tickets, you name it, they have it, James, and for up to 60% off, if not more.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm going to the Big 12 championship game tomorrow. Not that interested. I'm actually interested in the game, but I like going to Jerry World. I went there early when Michigan played. The only reason I'm going is because, hey, it's a Saturday. We don't have many programs going on here at Chat Sports, so I can go there for $3 with the GameTime app, which is about 90% off what the face value of that ticket is, and I can just use that money, put it towards the bar at Cowboy Stadium, have a few drinks there in the standing room only section. But the only reason I found out, GameTime sent me an alert and said, hey, tickets are way cheap for this game that you've expressed interest, college football. I'm going with GameTime. So chatsports.com/tickets, or just go into the App Store for iPhone or your Android device, type in GameTime. There you go.
All right, let's go ahead and continue with our rumor meter. We're going to bring it to rumor number 7 now. Starting quarterback David Long is considering a transfer. Now, we're giving this one Harbaugh head. What have you heard about this?
Well, this one caught me by surprise. I didn't think this was even, like, I didn't know where this came from, but this is a message board material, and it actually kind of popped up. I think sometimes these message boards, one person starts a rumor and it pops over to the other one, and then people like, oh, I saw this on this other website too. Oh my gosh, everyone's talking about it.
Spreads like wildfire.
So as a true sophomore cornerback out of the state of California, from Southern California, that he was unhappy, not with the coaching staff or his playing time. Obviously, he started as a true sophomore, and frankly, he's playing at near Big Ten levels the second half of the season. It was more or less he was homesick and thought he could sit out a year, go play for a UCLA, USC school like that. And Michigan already lost one of their best players from last year's recruiting class, same class as Long, and Devin Asiasi, who under the same thing, just didn't like the state of Michigan, didn't like the cold weather, went back and is going to start for UCLA as tight end next year after sitting out this year. But I can't give this any credibility. He's going to be a true junior next year. If he's really homesick, why not just play under Don Brown, who's proved to be one of the best defensive coordinators in the game, put a guy who made quite a few plays last night at the game you were at, the Cowboys game, like Jordan Lewis in the league last year in his first year as Michigan's defensive coordinator, and go pro early. Why not just wait literally 11 more months, you can go pro early versus sitting out a year. And then even if you're not drafted high, you get kind of what you want. You're out of Michigan, or you're there, but why go sit out a year when you're already a starter at a perennial top 15 program? That makes no sense. So I'm giving this one Harbaugh. It's out there, but I wouldn't put any credibility to it unless he comes out and says it himself.
All right, so this was another little rumor that both of us kind of were taken by surprise, and we're actually calling this one #fake news, James. Don Brown considering a role at Mississippi State?
Well, this hit the internet like a bag of bricks, a bag of bricks hitting you on the head the other night, because people are like, what? And the reason where it started from is it's just wild speculation from Mississippi State writers. Multiple Mississippi websites put on their defense and offensive coordinator hot board after Joe Moorhead got the job there. And so what's the connection there? They have coached together at previous stops. They're actually O coordinator, D coordinator a while back at Maryland together, have been reported to have a good reputation. Maybe not as good of one as they used to after Moorhead's offense completely shredded Michigan this year and dropped 40-plus points on them. But I digress. So I put this one in fake news. It went as far as a reporter asked Don Brown, got a hold of him yesterday. He said there's no truth to it at all. And I think sometimes these reporters, especially these bloggers with very few connections, they will go ahead and just kind of, who has he coached with in the past? That's the list. He's going to call up his guys. But you would never take the job at Mississippi State when you're the defensive coordinator and one of the top 5 paid ones in college football, like Don Brown is, with a number 1 or 2 or 3 defense the last 2 years. I think they ended up being 5 last year after being number 1 last year. But that is fake news.
So 0 Harbaugh heads for this rumor. Totally false.
I'm going negative Harbaugh heads. That's negative Harbaugh heads. That's very fake news. I think some of these websites are getting the Donald Trump fake news trophy that he bragged about earlier in the week.
All right, so yeah, 0 Harbaugh heads, not losing that key defensive coordinator there for the Michigan Wolverines. And then we have another rumor here, James. A lot of rumor mills churning about the defense. This time a sophomore linebacker might
Do you want me
lead
to
the
say
team.
his name? Because it's very difficult to
I'm going to let you send it here.
So Alisi Mbimbasi is how you pronounce it, right?
Mbimbasi.
And so this is actually, we're putting this as a fact. This is FACK. He has, this has not been reported anywhere, so I am breaking this story at this point.
Breaking news.
He's left the team. He is gone. He did not return to campus after the Maryland game. He went on the road, went home, and did not return to campus. So he is from the state of Georgia. He was a low 4-star by some services, but really a high 3-star kind of project. Don't know what the reasoning behind that, but he is not a member of the Michigan football team anymore. This is a breaking story. We're the first ones to report this, and he's not going to be coming back to Michigan in 2018. And I don't think it's much of a loss. He got some playing time as a true freshman last year, really kind of got passed over by some of his classmates. And then Michigan brought in maybe the best linebacking core of true freshmen this year. None of them really got any playing time, but 2 5-stars, a couple more 4-stars. And I think he just saw his place in the team not growing and really saw more playing time as a true freshman than he did as a sophomore. So he won't be on the team. He'll probably go down to JUCO for a year and then try and transfer back up to Mississippi State or Mississippi, middle of the tier pack SEC school, kind of the part of the country he grew up in.
All right, more transfer rumors now. Our 9th rumor-o-meter. Starting wide receiver Kekoa Crawford strongly considering a transfer, James. Now, we have this one at 2 Harbaugh heads, but still, I don't even want to think this is true at all.
Well, people are talking, and I have been calling for his head, figuratively, but him to be placed in the starting lineup for a long time, and he was a starter game 1, and his playing time decreased, and really only made a few plays all year. He made a spectacular catch in one of the games I forget about, over the shoulder. Might have been the Rutgers game or Minnesota, whatever it was. He made this touchdown catch versus Purdue, which was I'm sorry, this is the game I'm forgetting here, but he had a couple nice plays this year, and then got that play against Ohio State, which is one of the bigger ones of the game for Michigan, a screen pass, which he took 35 plus yards inside the Ohio State 15 to ultimately set up a touchdown. But I think this is a writing on the wall / a little bit of homesick. You always wonder what motivates a kid from Southern California to go to Michigan, right? And they've had a ton of them over the years, and quite a few have worked out. And then Northern California, players like, let's just say Tom Brady, Northern California going to Michigan, that worked out okay. But I think what it is I don't think he thinks he's going to be a starter next year. Tariq Black was a starter. He got injured. Donovan Peoples-Jones became the number 1 receiver. So he thinks, if I come back next year, I am at best the number 4 receiver behind Grant Perry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then Tariq Black. Plus, you've got Nico Collins and Oliver Martin, two true freshmen that are likely to compete right there. I think he sees a crowded depth chart, and he doesn't want to be second string for the next 2 seasons. And so he's going to pursue a wide receiver job elsewhere, probably in the Pac-12, I'm guessing, or potentially Mountain West.
All right, a little strategic move right there for the wideout. Last rumor we have for you guys, another transfer rumor. Former starting defensive lineman Bryan Mone considering a transfer. This one, James, we give 1 Harbaugh head.
Yeah, and not because he shouldn't consider transferring, because he probably should. I love that face mask. It's a few years old, but that's an awesome face mask there. He got replaced in the starting lineup, right? So by game 9, 3 weeks ago, Aubrey Solomon, the very highly touted 5-star defensive tackle from the state of Georgia, also Mbisa, our last linebacker, whose name I'm already forgetting how to pronounce it. And he's going to be a senior next year. He's not going to get his starting job back, almost guaranteed, because you've got such talented players coming up. He's already been replaced by a true freshman. Chase Winovich coming back. Rashawn Gary coming back. There's really not a spot for him on that line anymore. So he's going to be a backup. He could fifth year somewhere else. He'll graduate. But it sounds like he was invited back to the team. A lot of times fifth-year players are not invited back to the team and say, hey, you can play here. We don't have a scholarship for you. We've given you your 4 years. But he's going to come back, it seems like. And that's a good thing, because even though he won't start next year, you really want to have that depth in the defensive line. He's better than putting a true freshman in there or something like that. That's not going to make a big impact. It's also why Wilton Speight, even though he may have lost his starting job, I think was not a good thing for Michigan to lose, because what happens if Peters get hurt? What happens if McCaffrey get hurt? We saw 2 starting quarterbacks go down this year. You love to have Speight there. So good thing it sounds like this one is a small shred of truth that maybe he thought about it, but Jim Harbaugh told him he wanted him back, told him what his role would be, and Mone was willing to accept that role.
All right, that about wraps it up for our Rumor-O-Meter segment. Before we start taking a look at the bowl game, so Jim Harbaugh's 3rd regular season just wrapped up. James went 8-4. So after 3 seasons, we want to throw a little reaction poll up for you guys. What grade would you give him after 3 seasons? So A, B, C, D, F scale.
Yeah, I mean, if it was last year, I would have given him an A, but I guess I'll give him a B. I don't want to say C, unfortunately, because I don't think that's fair. Based on, people always will say this things, fan bases. I think if you would have polled the Michigan fan base for the year, that most people were saying, okay, if Harbaugh is a genius and can do everything right, we might end up a 1 or 2 loss team this year. Right. But hey, we're replacing more starters than any team in the country. We're the youngest team in the country, and never has Michigan had as many true sophomores or redshirt or true freshmen starting like they did this year. They had 18 redshirt, 18 first and second years players start multiple games this year. Can you believe that? And so I think most Michigan fans knew you're going to have a tough time winning a lot of these bigger games, and they would have said 3 or 4 losses. That's exactly what we got. We had a chance to beat Ohio State. There's a chance to beat Michigan State. Certainly, Penn State was not a winnable game, but also Brandon Peters stays in versus Wisconsin. You might win that game. So it could have been 2 losses. It could have been 3, 4. So I'm going to give them a B. They were a play away from the playoff in year 1. They were a botched snap in 2015 from playing Ohio State for a chance to go to the Big Ten title game. So Jim Harbaugh has not had good luck in his time at Michigan. Let's just say that everything that could have gone against him as far as losing close games has. And so I'm going to give him a B. But if he does not beat Ohio State, he's got 3 games he's got to play next year. If he doesn't win 2 of the 3, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Notre Dame, all 3 on the road next year, he's going to win 2 or 3 of those to keep that B or improve it to an A, or he's going to have to drop, unfortunately, down to a C.
Is definitely an upward climb for Jim Harbaugh. Keep on throwing up those reactions. We want to know what grade you would give him after 3 seasons. Let's go ahead and bring up a comment, though, coming in from Teresa. Teresa is asking, should we leave the Big Ten?
For what? No,
yeah,
no. It's an interesting question, but I don't think so at all. No.
Yeah. All right. Next one coming in from Sean. Winovich coming back for sure?
Well, it's interesting. Being the year, you never would have put Chase Winovich as an early entry kind of guy, and he would not commit to coming back next year. So I think he's going to put out his paperwork to the NFL. He's going to get his feedback probably in the first 10 days of January, and it'll probably come back and says he's a 3rd-round draft pick or 2nd round, and I think he's got a chance to leave. I think it's 50-50 at this point.
All right, next coming in from Rodney. Is Don Brown leaving? We mentioned this earlier, Rodney. We don't think so.
We need to get a fake news button and just throw up a picture of Donald Trump with the angry face. That is fake news that has been debunked by the Michigan Football Insider. Okay, fake news.